Tell the people what we're doing.
We're starting with Nashville.
Okay.
Nashville Predators, ladies and gentlemen, 41 wins, 30 losses. As we mentioned last episode, we are not counting the overtime losses because, quite frankly, they don't count. Last year's power play ranking, they were 16th in the league, so halfway exactly. Mediocre, but 21.6% conversion rate is not bad. It's. I know it's mediocre, but 21% is not bad. They're scoring 1 out of every 5. Who's in? Nashville. You've done yourself a.
Where's the list?
The busiest.
You know when you roll out the scroll there, that's super long.
The busiest team.
Absolutely, the busiest team in free agency. They've basically opened a cup contention window, maybe for the next few years with some of these players that they got. So they got the biggest fish out in the market, which was Steven Stamkos. Although some would argue Gensel is the biggest fish. But Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault are in. Brady Shea is in. Scott Wedgwood is in. Leaving is Jason Zucker, Kiefer Sherwood, and Ryan McDonough. Now, we won't get into those guys yet, but we will start talking about our tiers a little bit here. Do you want to
re-explain the tiers, Nick?
Yeah. So the tiers, we have 4 tiers. Mm-hmm. Basically, 91 plus is tier 1. 80 to 90 points is tier 2. Tier 3 is 70 to 79 points. And tier 4 is barely fantasy relevant, which is everybody hovering 60 to 69 points.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's how we programmed it, right? Anything under 60 points, we pretty much said is kind of waiver wire fodder. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really name guys that we predict under 60 points. But that's where the discussions are going to come in, because some of these players, maybe we are saying they're going to be under 60 points. We'll see. Let's start off with our tier 1, though. 91 plus point projected player, Philip Forsberg for Nashville Predators. I'm going to speak last. I want you guys to speak first. So, Junior?
All right. Well, I see a bit of a regression. He was on pace for, I believe, 94 points. He had 94 points in 82 games. So definitely on pace for 94. The season prior, 42 and 50. I see him more along the lines of a point per game player, slightly above. I think 90 is a stretch. And despite, you add a Stamkos, you add a Marchessault, you would think, you know what, he's going to get even more points. But how much more points can you possibly get if you were already the main focus of everything Nashville did? So I don't see him being healthy for 82 games again, because that was the first time he played a full season, I believe.
Well, 21-22 was a full season. 69 games, I think,
so
was
every 2 years he plays a full season.
No, well, 2014 to 2017, 3 seasons, 82 games. It's right down the screen, Junior.
Yeah, that's at the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but in the last 5 years or so, maybe had 2 full seasons. Anyways, whatever. We're talking about pace per 82 games anyway, so I see a little bit of a regression. His shooting percentage was average at 13, so that's good. I do think he might lose a little bit of power play goals because you're adding a Stamkos, who had, I believe, double-digit goals as well. So Forsberg had 13 power play goals. Stamkos had 19 power play goals. O'Reilly had double-digit power play goals. Like, at some point, not everybody could have double-digit power play goals. Same was Nyquist. But anyways, we'll get to those players later. I do think he'll regress, but I still think he'll be a point per game player.
No, I think he'll do a repeat of what he did last year. I feel he's in his. I feel from the ages of 27 to 31, those are your prime years in the NHL. He's at 29 right now, years old. So he just showed last year what type of player he is. The years previous, he also showed he could have been more than a point of player, except injuries brought him back a bit. And I think the new additions will just help, because at the end of the day, he got 94 points and he was the main attraction. We can even say the only attraction in Nashville. Like, there was nobody else who was getting points. There was Ryan O'Reilly?
Nyquist.
Name me okay, Nyquist was 35 years old, right?
No, I'm not saying he's in it. I'm just saying he got points.
But I'm saying it's that.
He had 75 points last year.
Who was their second line? So now you're going from a Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist first line, and now your second line is Stamkos, Marchessault, and Novak. So you have to balance yourself out to see who you're going to play against, right? So I feel the power play, he might regress on the power play, meaning he might not get as many goals on the power play.
But they'll turn to assist maybe.
Exactly. But 5-on-5, I feel he'll have an easier time because you can't always put your best defensive players on that line and then leave the Stamkos Marchessault line with your second best defensive line.
It'll be interesting to see if they keep that line.
Yeah, well, that's it. We don't know lines. It's early to know lines. And listen, I see the power play just improving. I feel Roman Josi is the number one defenseman who it's a wonderful, wonderful.
We're not there yet. All right, so what I'm going to say here is that if you look at his point pace, 82 game point pace, over the last 3 years, in 2021, 2022, he had a 100-point pace. In 2022-23, he had a 69-point pace and then a 94-point pace. His shooting percentage wasn't out of this world. It was pretty much his average. The only thing I'll say is that adding Stamkos, your 16th ranked power play might convert more. So in that sense, it might make up for any fallback that he has from the 94-point pace, and that's why I still rank him as a 90-point player for this year.
But he still had 32 points on the power play. How many more points can he possibly get on the power play?
I'm not saying he's going to get more points on the power play. I'm saying that he's going to have the same.
Yeah,
because the power play as a whole is going to get better having better players around, right?
Right.
Your number one power play last year had Nyquist on it, had O'Reilly on it. Now you're adding a Stamkos, you're adding a Marchessault, you still have a Forsberg on there, you still have a Josi on there. That's a pretty potent power play. Well, I don't think they're going to finish 16th in the league. They're going to finish maybe 10th or top 10. Yeah, and just there alone, that might balance out whatever regression he has.
Well, right? when I meant regression, it's just because I think the points will be spread out more. Whereas last year was pretty much just Forsberg had 94 points. Josi, he's a defenseman. He had 85, but Nyquist was at 75. O'Reilly was at 69. After that, it falls all under 50. Whereas this year, there'll be more people with 30-plus goals. Mm-hmm. There'll be more players, 60 to 70, between 60 and 80 points.
But Nashville will also score more. That's what I'm trying to say.
How much more can they score?
Well, they scored 266. They were 10th in the league in scoring. When you add Marchessault and Stamkos, it's not like you lost any of the goal scorers.
Let's say Nyquist gets thrown off that line and they add Stamkos. Example, okay? Nyquist no longer is going to produce at a 75-point pace, guys.
Yeah, but he gave you 23 goals, Nyquist. He didn't give you 30 goals.
75-point pace.
Last year.
Right,
he was 75 points. How was he not fantasy relevant?
He was a 75-point pace?
No, he got 75 points.
75 points in 81 games. That's not going to happen again.
Okay,
no, that's not going to happen.
Junior, this is what you have to.
O'Reilly too, 69 points.
But why do you think why do you think it's going to come off of Forsberg and not come off of them?
It will come off slightly from them, mostly from them, but also from Forsberg.
But if you look at this,
a little bit. Yeah, we're talking 10 points.
We're talking about the play is driven from Forsberg. He's the play driver. He's the power forward that goes into all the dirty areas. He's going to have his role. The other guys, I don't know if their role might diminish a bit because now you're getting somebody that could enter the zone really well, like Marchessault. You're getting somebody that could snipe as well as him because nobody else could really snipe on that team before, like Stamkos.
The thing is, Forsberg was 2 goals close from 50, but then the next person behind him is with 26 goals. It's O'Reilly. So I don't think the production will come off of Forsberg. I think it's just they'll get more goals for, and they'll probably have 2 30-goal scorers, if possible, with Marchessault and Stamkos.
Oh, look, anything could happen. It's interesting, though. Like, where do you have him projected as to finish the season?
Around 84 points.
Okay, so
we're talking about like give or take 10 points. It's not a crazy regression. Yeah. It's just compared to last year.
It's interesting. I like it. All right, moving on. our next player is Roman Yossi in tier 2 between 80 to 90 points. Last year, Junior, you just mentioned the fact that he had 85 points. What is Roman Yossi exactly?
A number 1 defenseman. That's 2 in 2 episodes, guys.
Oh boy!
I don't know how long I can go with naming one per
we're
episode.
doing this all. We're doing this all previews, especially Vancouver preview, because that's where the comments came in.
Robin Yossi, 23 goals, 62 assists, 85 points in 82 games. Nice to see him play a full season last year. Very fair shooting percentage at 8.6. He had 33 power play points, 5 game-winning goals. Where do we see Roman Yossi going this year? I think a bit more of the same. I don't know if he'll hit 85, but close to a point per game. I think he can manage that. He's much better surrounded. Like you guys said, the power play should help, and he's still essentially the lead guy back there. Regardless that Brady Shea joined the team, it's still Yossi's top power play, top pairing. So anything that major that happens goes through Yossi. I see more of the same, honestly.
Well, listen, to me, his age, he's getting up there in age. He's 34 years old as a defenseman. I think the benefit for acquiring Shea is that his ice time could diminish 5-on-5 or even shorthanded when it comes to Yossi because of his age. But I feel his production will still be there. He's still a number 1 pairing defenseman. And at the end of the day, like we said, if the power play is going from 10th to top 5, you know he's going to be in the middle of half of those points. So I believe he'll still be in the 80 to 90 points.
Out of the 23 goals, only 9 were on the power play. So a lot of that happened 5v5. Can he do that again? I think so. He's done it in the past.
The only thing I'll say is that he is 34 years old. And I kept waiting for him to diminish. I kept waiting for that age curve, the one that you start falling off cliffs, right? It's not happening yet. However, he played 82 games this year. He was averaging 24 and a half minutes on of ice time, okay? Last year, he only played 67 games. So, really, his health is going to play a big factor in this. Do I still see him as an 85 point? He still has the skill to be an 85 point defenseman. I think he will regress a tiny bit. His shooting percentage was 8.6 as opposed to his career average of 6.7. You know,
I expect his goals to go down. You're right.
I expect the goals to go down a little bit. Losing 2% of 23, though, isn't that much. You're talking about 2-3 goals, really.
Yeah. Maybe on the power play, he might lose a goal or two because, there's Stamkos, Marchessault.
Right. So you're still talking about a superstar defenseman, a number 1 defenseman, and in lineup combinations for daily faceoff, they have Shea and Yossi playing on the same line. So that's going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it goes, but I like what Nashville did this year. We're talking about bringing in players to support their stars, and they just added stars as well.
Yeah, they give themselves 3 years to win the cup.
Yeah, I like that 3-year analysis. It might even be 2 good ones and then one.
Exactly.
But we'll see. And a big part of that is the next guy we're going to talk about, which is Steven Stamkos. So Steven Stamkos, we have him in tier 3 between 70 to 79 points. I don't know if we all agree on that, but I'll start with Junior.
Again, all right. Steven Stamkos, I agree with that. I don't think I feel like when players hit like the age of 34, like we keep thinking, especially elite players, we keep thinking, it's their demise. And I used to be that type of guy that never used to draft them because, the year I take them is going to be the year they're gonna dip.
The fear of age.
And it's like the Boston Bruins. We keep thinking they're just never they're gonna not make the playoffs, or they're gonna have a huge regression, and they just never regress. They're always a good team. So we have to put that behind us, and until they regress, then we know they regressed. I think Stamkos can be close to a point per game. I do see a little bit of a regression because personally, I don't know about you guys, I don't like no matter how good the player is, I don't like new players going to a new city with a new team for the first time in their careers, especially after having spent their whole careers with one team. So for me, that's an automatic little bit of a dip because it'll take some getting used to. I could be completely wrong. I mean, players have done it before. Duchesne wasn't quite a brand new team, but he really didn't do well in Nashville, at least not for the length of his contract. And Ryan Johansson was the first one that was his first time changing cities, changing teams, and it started off not bad, but then faded out. So naturally, I see a bit of a dip, but I could still see him scoring close to 35 goals to 40 goals.
Yeah, listen, 70 to 79 to me.
Yeah, I think that's very fair.
Is fair. He's going to. I feel he's in the same situation as last year. He's not the main man. Last year in Tampa, he wasn't the main man. It was Kucherov and Point. Over here, he's not the main man. You have Forsberg, you have O'Reilly as a centerman. So he doesn't have all the pressure of bringing in 50 goals like he did in his career when he was early Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has Hedman. They have Yossi. So I feel the adaptation will be better for him. I actually feel he might be playing with maybe better players than he played with in Tampa. Because if he didn't always play with Kucherov and Point.
On the power play, though.
No, on the power. But I mean, 5-on-5, he wasn't always Kucherov and Point. Sometimes they put him with Hagel and Cirelli. So already here, if he plays with Marchessault, I just feel. Listen, he's 34. He's not in the tier 2, tier 1 anymore. That's for sure. But in the tier 3, I think it's reasonable. And like every player we're going to talk about, health is the biggest thing, right?
He stayed relatively healthy the last 3 years.
Relatively healthy for the amount of years he played in the NHL.
Yeah.
So I think 70 to 79, and I'd go 30 to 35 goals.
Before you go, just to your point, he spent on average half the season with Cirelli and half the season with Point and Kucherov. So it was on and off.
Yeah.
Well, the one major thing that I saw from last year was the start of the drop. And why am I saying the start of the drop? It didn't really appear in the points, right? Because he ended up with 40 goals, 41 assists. You're gonna comments in the Discord or comments in the YouTube chats are gonna be, what's this guy saying? But the fact of the matter is that he was a minus 21 last year. It was the first time that he was a minus double digits in his career. He went from plus 23 to minus 5 to minus 21, and we don't like plus minus as a stat necessarily, but if you actually watch Tampa, Stamkos was no longer the driver of plays. He wasn't fast the way he used to be fast. He needed somebody to set him up for him to snipe it in. He still has the hands to score, but he's no longer that driver of offense on his line. And I think that's kind of a little bit where Marchessault comes in, like you said. That may be a big help for him to try to get him the puck in scoring situations a little bit more. So I do start to see some of the underlying numbers say that there's a little bit of a drop-off for Stamkos. But he might be rejuvenated in a brand new team, right? Coming in and wanting to prove that he still got it in him. And I do still see somebody that's going to get 75 points. And that's where I have him projected, 75, 76 points for this year in Nashville. So still a very good player. $8 million. I think it's fair. He's a little bit older. By the end of that contract, it might start hurting because he got 4 years at $8 million.
So in a dynasty,
he'll be 38 then.
In a dynasty league, because redraft leagues, obviously, it's a no-brainer. You can draft him. In a dynasty league, you're saying, well, not that you're saying, but based off what you said, you would consider trading him before he plays a game with Nashville, seeing as you think that his value is probably at his highest.
Look,
what would you guys do in a dynasty league if you could permit yourself of trading him? Would you, or would you keep him?
$8 million is not the end of the world for a 75-point player.
No, it's very fair.
So I don't think this year is necessarily the year that you have to trade him. But you're starting to get to near the end of that road. So I would not keep him all 4 years of his current contract. That's for sure.
If you're a contender, you're not trading
can't,
Stamkos.
you're right.
Stamkos is going to be a 30 goal scorer. You don't trade a 30 goal scorer if you're a contender.
No, absolutely.
You're
Yeah.
not getting it back. So.
But if you're middle of the pack or you're at the end, I think you have to consider it
If
before.
your team has gotten
he-
older
well,
and you
then-
see you're you're in the 5th spot or the 6th
As a-
spot,
as a GM, you got to decide: is this year where I'm going to go, or if I'm still middle of the pack, then I wait and then trade deadline. I
or
trade
see
him.
what the return could be.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a young
exactly.
guy that sets you back a
Yeah.
year, but or whatnot. Right.
Exactly.
All right, moving on. The tier 4 players, and we have a few of them here. Let's start with Gustav Nyquist because we had mentioned him before. He had 75 points last year. We're expecting him to regress closer to a 60 to 69 points, which is tier 4. Let's start with the other way around this time. We're going to go with Vince to my right.
Yeah, I feel a regression here has to do a lot with the age and people players they signed. I see him if he hits 60. In the tier 4 section, it's more in the lower tier that he's gonna hit, so in the 60s to 65. And even then, I'm not too convinced that he's gonna actually hit that 60 mark. Remember last year he had no competition to take his place, right? There was nobody. There was him, Forsberg, O'Reilly. Now he's got two other players that can move up to that line, which is Marchessault or Stamkos. So I feel his ice time will probably go a little lower because right now he was on power play 1. He's not on power play 1 anymore.
I think he's the one who gets booted off power play 1.
Yeah, of course. No, it has to be. So I feel already there is going to take out a few points from him. So I feel it's 60 is like the maximum I'd put him at in points. Like
So barely making tier 4.
yeah, barely making tier 4. I feel
If Nyquist gets booted off the first line, then Nyquist owners are in trouble because he'll lose his power play points. He had, sorry about this, he had 24 power play points. I think that easily becomes minus like 6, 7, 8, about 8 points because, look, injuries happen, and we'll talk, I don't know if we'll talk about him later, but he's not scheduled to be in our tiers, but a guy like Luke Evangelista should be taking the next step. He had 39 points last year. Naturally should progress a little bit, especially with all the talent around. Then the Stamkos play center. Does he not play center?
no.
I'm just saying we don't know what can happen. Like O'Reilly has to. We have to remember O'Reilly has to keep up as a center.
O'Reilly,
No, that's 34 years old. There's Novak there. What I'm saying is, Nyquist. There's a lot of guys that should be taking another step, or that came in to possibly compete with Nyquist. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if by halfway through the season he's on the third line or fourth line.
Yeah, I see it.
Well, so 3.1 million. That's his cap hit. 3.185. So you're talking about a guy that put up 75 points last year at $3 million.
It was a hell of a hit.
Right?
Great hit, of course.
Isn't that a great, for salary cap leagues, that's great value. For the real NHL, that's great value, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the part where I look at it and I would still take a risk on him if you're a cap league and you're looking for, because it's not going to cost, if you're looking for somebody to put up some points, it's not going to cost you much to get a Gustav Nyquist. And he's still going to probably play, I don't know about PP1 anymore, but he's still going to play top 6 minutes on this team that just loaded up. So I don't see him necessarily going down. I don't think Luke Evangelista is there yet to really get more points than Nyquist on the top 6, but he's getting there, right? Like Evangelista, I have him at 45 points for next year.
Yeah.
Gustav Nyquist, I still think he's around that 60 mark. So regression candidate, maybe for sure,
Yeah.
but maybe not to the point of not top 6 anymore.
But don't you feel Nyquist, even with Detroit, when he was the main guy, he was getting a lot of points. Then he went to Columbus. No one else was putting up offense except for him. He was given that responsibility. A lot of minutes, was putting up points. But like when he's not going to be that guy, is he going to be as relevant as point producing? I don't think so.
Look, he's getting up there in age as well. I don't think you want him to be the number one guy on your
He
team.
played 17 minutes last year.
Yeah,
It's not much.
That's not much, but
It's not much.
I don't see it being higher than.
I
No, I don't
dropped
see
to
it being-
16.
I see him going down to 14, 15 minutes.
Wow,
Well, that's third liner then.
Yeah, because
fair enough.
he's losing his power play one time.
that's for sure.
If you
Yeah.
look at every team, they want their first power play to play between 1 minute and 1 minute and 30 seconds
Per power play.
per
Notice a
power
lot of
play.
these players are 34 years old.
Yeah, but that's why Nashville went all
Josie
in.
noticed
That's why Nashville has a it's a 2 to 3 year window.
Stamkos. Okay,
So that's what it is.
Nyquist averaged 3 minutes on the power play last year.
Yeah.
let's move on to O'Reilly. So let's go with Vince again because I kind of used and abused the junior here before.
Listen, O'Reilly, his whole career, he's been between that 60 to 70, 60 to 69. Once in a while, he'll go up and have that good season that's between 70 and 80. But I feel he'll be in that era. He'll be playing with better players. O'Reilly, what makes O'Reilly survive in the NHL is that he can produce the offense, but he can protect his two wingers by playing amazing defense. So a player like Forsberg feels more free and being more offensive, creative offensively because he knows he has an O'Reilly who's there, who's going to cover him if ever there's a mistake. So I feel he's going to be between the 60 to 69. He's been healthy in the last few years. So I mean, I don't see his points going higher, even though the first line will be, let's say, a stamp gun, because Nyquist did get 75 points last year. So I see him staying between the 60 to 69 points.
He has 3 more years at $4.5 million.
That's awesome value.
It's still great value for a player that puts up between 60 to 70 points year after year. Is he very fantasy relevant? I guess in a cap league you would say yes, but he's more of a two-way player that provides more real life NHL value than actual fantasy value. But
I mean, he was still pretty valuable in some leagues last year.
sure, but you're talking about a point pace of 69 points last year. Well, 69 points on the dot he had last year, right? The year before that, he had a point pace of 46. The year before that, 61. So, again, you're talking about a bottom of your lineup player. If you're talking a 65-point average between those years.
Yeah, I think middle 6. But I see a bit of a regression because he got 26 goals last year. That's his second best total in his career. He's had 28 2 times. I don't see him scoring 26 this year, especially with the additions of Marcius, who's a 30 to 40 goal scorer, and Steven Stamkos, who's a 30 to 40 goal scorer. And 28 of his points, that's 40% of his points were on the power play. So that he can still keep up, right? Because I don't see him losing power play one time.
Well, no, he's the center who's going to win the face.
I just see more his
Yeah.
goals dipping and his assists staying more or less the same. But yeah, I think he can be a 60-point player, but he might regress a little bit.
You have to see if that's valuable for your league.
Right.
Like, I'm in one league, which is Fraps and Rigs. I had to drop him straight up.
Wow.
It's 60 to 65 points doesn't move any needles in that league.
How many teams in that league?
It's a 10-team league, and we start 9 forwards, 4 defensemen. 5 defensemen, 6 defensemen. I don't remember right now, but it's
Okay, so about like a 14-player,
but only 3 centers.
10-team league, 3 centers.
Only 3 centers, and he only counts as a center. So do I want my last center to really be a 60-point center?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense for me, right?
So it depends the league for sure.
Depends the league. Anyways, moving on to Tommy Novak, another center. Look at that segue. Jesus. I feel like we've been doing this really well lately. Tommy Novak, he is a 27-year-old left-handed center. This is his 3rd year in Nashville, actually in the league. He only had a 52-point pace. Why are we putting him in tier 4, Vince?
The only reason I see him in tier 4 is that, once again, the signing they did, he'll be playing with more quality players, better quality players. He wasn't getting power play one time anyways last year. So I feel 5-on-5 he'll just be playing with better quality players, whether it's with Marshall, whether it's with Stamkos. His points will, if Nashville's going to score more goals, his points will go higher. But he is a type of player who's I think the leash is very short on him. At 27, I think, especially the stats he had 2 years ago, which were 43 points in 51 games, and then he comes back with 45 and 71. I think the leash is very short on him to perform this year, and especially that they surrounded him with better talented players. So that's the only reason I would put him in the tier 4 area.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, 43 points in 51 games in his 2022-2023 season with Nashville. It's a 69-point pace. Like you said, he has better alignments. His most consistent and best alignment was Luke Evangelista, who we now have scheduled at 40, projected maybe 49, 43 points. He only had 39 last year. So Novak should definitely see a boost in production. I agree with you. I think it'll rejuvenate him a little bit in that sense, and he'll be a little bit more excited to play. Look, even if, Novak has the second line center spot locked in. He has no pressure on someone taking it away from him. I don't think they're going to go with Colton Sissons over Tommy Novak or McCarron over Novak.
Right.
And I don't think anyone in the pipeline really is ready to come in and take his spot either. So I agree with Vince. There's got to be a boost in production here. I see him possibly hitting the 60-point mark.
Yeah, barely hitting 60. I think that's accurate. I mean, you guys pretty much said everything I was going to say, so I'm not going to spend too much time on Tommy Novak. The best part that I could say about Tommy Novak, really, is the fact that he has a $3.5 million cap hit. So 60 points at $3.5 million, it's value. There's value there. And I think that he will reach that 60-point mark just because by attrition he's playing with good players next to him. Lastly, Jonathan Marchessault, who might be on his line. What do we think about Jonathan Marchessault this time around, Vince?
The player has always played with a chip on his shoulder, and I think this year is no different. I think he was insulted that Vegas didn't offer him a contract after everything he did for that team, winning a cons. So every time we say this is the year where Marsh will dip, he just comes back and just executes. So and he's surrounded with. I think Nashville did a wonderful job surrounding their players with talented players this year. So I think he's one of them. So I put him in the 60 to 69, but I'm not surprised if he goes to a tier 3 next. Like if he performs in the tier 3 section next year.
Go ahead.
He scored 42 goals last year. I think that comes down a little bit. What impressed me a little bit is he spent over 3 minutes on the first power play per game with Vegas, and only managed like 17 points. So like it's not like his power play points were enormous. Only 8 of his 42 goals came on the power play. So he's very effective 5-on-5. Like you said, he probably drives play. I see his goals dipping, but maybe his assists going up. So like it'll balance out. I think he'll dip a little bit, but I still see him in the 60-point range. I don't think though closer to 60 than 70.
Okay, well, I mean,
and his shooting percentage was 15.8, which is 3% more than the previous years.
4% higher than his average, though.
Yeah.
So, but I just did a calculation of what's 4% of 42 goals, and that's 1 goal difference, 1.6 goals difference. So even if he drops a couple of goals, I don't think that's crazy. But I do think something else that you said, going to a new team, a new player going to a new team, and I think that does play a role, right? In Vegas, he was there for a long time. He was there for 6, 7, 8 years. So, you know, Marchessault being there for 8 years was a level of comfort with some of the players that he was playing with. I I do see a dip here. And I know, Vince, you said that it's possible that he hits that 70. I think it's more likely that he hits the 60. And in his career, if you take a look at it, he had a 69-point pace last year, a 62-point pace the year before that, 71 before that, 66, 58, 59. Like, we're not talking about a player that has consistently been crazy fantasy relevant. So Marchessault, I think we have him in the right tier, between 60 to 69. And I think closer to 60 will be my presumption for this player this year. Other than that, I don't have anything else really to say about him. $5.5 million cap hit. Still pretty good value for 60 points. Just like exactly where he should be, kind of thing. We're going to talk about...
Do we want to mention Brady Shea quickly, or?
Well, he's in our power play defenseman section. I should have probably put that on top of the goalie section, but anyways, let's do it now. So Brady Shea is coming in. He's most likely going to be power play 2, not power play 1 time necessarily. He's at $7 million. $7 million is a little bit steep.
Tough to digest for a cap league.
Tough to digest for a cap league, absolutely. Do you want to start, Junior?
Sure. Look, he got 12 points on power play 2 last year. He was only averaging 59 minutes of power play with the Carolina Hurricanes, which I think we can all agree we thought it was more sometimes.
Yeah.
But especially when Burns fell off a cliff a little bit. So I see more of the same. What I might appreciate a little bit more, if he is paired with Roman Josi, because on daily faceoff it's projected that way, but no one really knows. That could help. That could help him get a little bit more points as well, 5-on-5. But all in all, I think he is about a 40. He could be about a 40-point defenseman. I think 47 maybe might be a career high, but I see him more on the 40-point range. But very effective player in the National Hockey League. I don't think very relevant in a fantasy league.
Maybe bottom of the lineup defenseman, right? 40-point defenseman can still be bottom
well,
of the
I'll tell
lineup.
you what. Roman Josi, you guys mentioned before, 34 years old. Like, an injury comes in here. Shea's on a great power play there. Like, opportunity is there. Like a nice handcuff, I'd say.
Yeah, hope and a prayer, right?
Maybe not a prayer, but a little bit of a hope, because he still does well 5-on-5.
For him to hit 50 points, I think that Josi needs to miss time.
Yeah, of course.
So that's why I'm saying it's a little bit of a hope and a prayer there.
He's a waiver pickup if there's injuries.
Yeah, good call.
In cap league, I wouldn't touch him. His salary is just too high for the amount of points that he'll get.
Or you're desperate.
Yeah, but then
Zero D strategy.
Zero D strategy. I tried that once, by the way.
So, but yeah, I don't think he's fantasy relevant right now.
Okay. Let's go to the goalie tandems. So here there's one workhorse in UC Saros. He had a .906 save percentage last year, which is quite good. 2.86 goals against average. His goals saved above expected at 5-on-5, which is a stat that I mentioned last week that I really enjoy. He was 41st in the league. So maybe not the best of seasons, and if you have a 2.86 goals against average, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. He is the number one goalie, though. You are talking about somebody here that's going to be playing the majority of the games. They brought in a new backup in Scott Wedgwood. His goal saved above expected on 5-on-5 last year was 46th. So basically, a guy that could come in and spell Saros, and you're not losing too much when he does a spot start.
Listen, Saros is going to be the workhorse. I mean, we'll talk about another goalie who...
I mean, that's not rocket science that we're saying here, right?
No, there's going to be another team we're going to talk about today that has also a goalie who's going to be their main workhorse. So he's 100% fantasy related, especially if you're looking at wins, if you're looking at... So and the team got better than last year. I think last year his contract was hanging over him, which made it that he had a bit of an off year. Now that that's settled, he signed a long-term deal, got his money. I feel he'll be one of the top 5 goalies in the stats for next year.
To jump on what you said, not only was he unsigned for the next year, but he knew there was an elite prospect like
Behind him.
right behind him, ready to come up or almost ready. So I think you're right. I think that could have played a part. However, I although he's gonna be the lead dog, he's gonna get the most games. I do think his number of games played will dip, but his numbers will be better for it because Wedgwood with Ottinger played 32 games, and the year before in a mixture of teams played 37. So he's capable of that. I think for Saros' sake, if Wedgwood could play 30 games, 29 games, and Saros plays 51, 52, like if Saros can play between 50 and 55, I think he'll be better off than having to play 65 to 67.
No, he just signed an extension, 8 years, 7.74 on the cap. So not bad for a player that plays this
Solid.
much and is a solid number one, right? $61.92 million dollars. Just a question for you. I think it starts in, because I'm still kind of learning Puckpedia. It's starting in 25-26 his new cap.
Right, he's got one full season left at $5 million.
Beautiful.
Absolutely, especially with all the additions they made.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many more wins he'll have based off my projection of him playing closer to 55 games. But if he does play 65 to 67, he could hit 40 wins.
Yeah. Well, goal save above expected wasn't his favorite stat. They had last year Kevin Lankinen, who actually performed better when it came to goals saved above expected, but he only played 24 games. Saros had played 64 games this year. So it's something to look at in the sense that if he does lower the amount of games he plays, it might be beneficial for him. So even if it's just 5 games less, maybe he played 64 last year, maybe 58 would be ideal for Saros, keep him fresh for the playoffs as well. Anything else to add on goalies?
Well, we'll talk about we can transfer into their prospects.
Let's jump to Askarov.
All right, so let's jump straight to Askarov. Yeah.
So, well, listen, I'll just name...
Before you talk, Vint, I think everyone needs to know you own him.
Yes, I won't ask for
Oh, okay.
I'll just name
Bring out the flowers, everybody. Bring out the flowers.
I'll just name the prospects that Nashville has, and then we can just choose which ones we would want to talk about, because not all of them are going to be really relevant in here. So you obviously they have Askarov, they have Matthew Woods, they have Kemmel, they have Zachary Lutter, Luke Evangelista, who played last year, but he's still considered a prospect because he played under 100 games. Tanner Moldick, Fedor Svechkov, Reed Schaefer, Ryan Ufko, and Felix Nilsson. So listen, Askarov, I am not sure what they're doing here. I honestly don't know what they're doing with Askarov unless they're planning on trading him, and right now haven't gotten what they wanted. But he's played 2 or 3 years in the AHL, dominating the AHL, so his numbers weren't bad in the AHL. I thought this year was going to be the year where they were going to bring him up and at least be a backup, but they're not even doing that, so I don't know.
Well, Askarov, I think, is a trade chip here. You just signed Saros for 8 years, plus the 1 year that he has left on his contract, so that the next 9 years, Saros is there. It's not going to be a 1A, 1B system in Nashville. Saros is the guy in Nashville. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a trade coming for Askarov, and hopefully, I mean, in my fantasy world that I'm considering, I'm saying go get a center. Go get somebody better than Novak to be your number 2 center, to play with Stamkos, to play with Marchessault. Right? That would be ideal, I think.
Yeah, but then that would ruin our Tommy Novak projections.
No, he'll be less than 60. But anyways, that's just my own opinion. If I was the GM of Nashville, that's how I would do it. Either way, though, he had a great year in the AHL last year. I think you were telling us last time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 911 save percentage, 239 goals against average. He had a pretty bad playoff though. 3.25 goals against and an 882 save percentage. But I mean, look, he played 2 games with Nashville. He played 2 games with Nashville last year. 1.4 goals against average and 943 save percentage in the NHL. Just 2 games, very small sample size. But look, he's under 3 goals a game, and he's at 9-11 save percentage in the AHL. It's pretty solid.
I just think Nashville kind of shot themselves in the foot with this extension for Saros. Why not try to trade Askarov before extending? Because right now, as a GM, as an opposite GM, we know you're trying to trade Askarov. So,
but they don't have to trade him. That's the difference.
I know, but at the end of the day, I feel they lost a bit of the trading power because, well, as soon as you announce Saros 7 years, goalies are like, every GM is like, okay, well, I guess Askarov's out of the picture, and they're the ones who you're trying to trade, right?
I think in the end, what might have made them be more patient is the fact that with all these additions, like you guys said, they have like a 2 to 3 year cup window. Something happens to Saros, at least you have Askarov. If something happens to Saros and Askarov's not there, yikes.
Yeah, I don't think there's an urgency to trade Askarov, but there is maybe a lowering in theoretical value because other GMs know that he's not your main guy.
But they could have brought him up as a backup.
But
that would have been the logical thing to do,
but
instead of signing Wedgwood. We'll see.
Any other prospects that you guys think are going to be fantasy relevant this year?
Well, doesn't matter about this year. What I'm saying is that Joachim Kemmel is the next best prospect that they have.
Yeah, for sure.
Which you own.
Yes, I do.
All right, so you're not allowed talking about it. 67 games played with the Milwaukee Admirals last year. He had 16 goals, 25 assists for 41 points. Not maybe the greatest, but also it was his, I'll say, rookie season in the AHL. It's his first time he played more than 14 games in the AHL. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about a guy that's a scorer. He needs to play in a top 6 role. He's not going to have that in Nashville this year.
No.
So he's a guy that I could see one more year or two even in the AHL, and then being called up to be a top 6er in Nashville after that.
Yeah. I think he's their number one call up if a forward gets injured.
Yeah, could be. You have any other?
I'm just gonna touch on Luke Evangelista just because I have him, so I follow him a little more.
Oh, no wonder you thought he'd go up in value.
I just think, look, he had 39 points in 80 games last year. I do think, and he played 0 shifts, okay, with Forsberg, 0. His most consistent lineman, like I said earlier, was Tommy Novak. I think as he gets more experience and gets better, he'll probably have that opportunity. I think at some point in this next year, he will have an opportunity, and it'll be up to him to grab the bull by the horns and take advantage of it. I think, look, he's still on his ELC. In a dynasty league, it's someone nice to stash because he's already in the NHL and hasn't been given that opportunity yet, but has been progressing. But if given that opportunity to play on a line with Forsberg or Stamkos, like that's 2 solid lines they have there. If he can make his way in the top 6, could be a nice a league winner. Is that what they call him?
Well, like we were saying, if Nyquist gets bumped down to the 3rd line, someone's going to need to take his position, right?
Yeah.
So if you're thinking Evangelista will be the first one who gets a shot at it. So maybe he might. That's how he might progress up in the points.
All right, final thoughts and predictions. Well, Dom Luszczyszyn's model had Nashville as the 6th best net offseason upgrades. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about Nashville, and there was a lot of changes in Nashville. So it's going to be a fun season to see how all these players mesh together and how they create a winning team or a playoff team that goes deep. Because, I mean, if you're bringing in these guys, that's what you're hoping for.
Or it could go the other way, where a team that
it just doesn't
brings
blend.
in a lot of new players doesn't blend. This is all on coaching, right? The coaching, Brunette has to really get these guys all together. But the thing is, I think they brought enough veterans like Marshall and Stamkos are veterans that are going to be more adaptable than if you bring in a young player, let's say like Johnny Gaudreau in Columbus and stuff like that.